Hello there, and welcome to the fish barn. So in last week's video, we talked about this rack of 29-gallon tanks and the fact that it needed to be aquascaped. So today I want to get these tanks aquascaped and start to get some fish in there. Alright, so this first tank we want to look at, actually it's really a 30-gallon. It's a little bit longer and a little bit shorter than your typical 29-gallon. So I do have a fish that I do want to target in here, and that is a shell dweller species, the Telmatochromis species Temporalis shell. So my plan for this is to add some of these empty escargot shells along with the shells from the original 20-gallon tank that they're currently living in. I'm also going to add some Vallisneria as well before I move in the fish. For the substrate in this tank, I do have some pool filter sand, which I think will be great for the shell dwellers. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to put in this big reef rock as well. It'll help buffer the water a little bit and also give them a place to hide. I'm also going to take the rock that's currently in their 20-gallon tank and go ahead and put that in here as well. So you can see here, I did have the start of a pretty quick and easy aquascape. Just plant a little bit of Vallisneria, add some shells, and added the coral rock. So I'm pretty confident that we're ready to move the fish in for this tank. So now we're over to the shell dweller tank. So there's a ton of duckweed on the top of this tank. So I'm going to go ahead here and take a net, try to get rid of some of this duckweed before we net out the fish. I really don't want to transfer this duckweed to a brand new tank. So now that we have the duckweed out, I'm going to go ahead here and start moving the shell dwellers. One of the great things about shell dwellers is they're actually really easy to move. And once I put my hand in there, they're either going to go into the rock or go into the shells. At that point, I'll just pick them up and put them into the new tank. So now we're just going to net up the rest of the shells. Okay, so we did get the tank emptied. You can see it's definitely a little bit cloudy from stirring up all the substrate and everything. But I do believe I got all the fish. I'm going to check back in on this tank every few days to make sure I caught any stragglers. Alright, so let's go ahead here and look at the new tank. I really do like this aquascape. Very simple, but there's plenty of new shells in there for the fish to inhabit. It'll probably take them a couple hours or so to come out of their shell, so to speak. But once they're out, I think this will be a pretty fun tank to watch. The colony was definitely starting to overrun the 20-gallon, so I figured now was the time to move them to something bigger. I'll give this colony some more room to grow. So I do want to move over to the next tank, and it's a pretty similar setup. It's got the jungle valve, which is floating in the top. Also has the pool filter sand for the substrate. I'm actually going to set this tank up with the exact same setup. I also have another Lamprologous species that I want to put in here. And this is more of a riverine species, actually coming from the Congo. This is a Lamprologous Tigripictillis. This is another fish that's been inhabiting a 20-gallon tank and kind of really needs an upgrade. So what I'm going to do here is actually shut the camera off, do the aquascape, then I'll go ahead and show it to you here at the end. So I went ahead and finished the aquascape. However, I really don't like it. The fish are kind of hiding out a lot and really need to add something more to it. So I did go back to my research on this fish. This fish definitely needs a lot more cover. So I'm going to go ahead here, add some more rocks, add a few caves that I have lying around, and I bet these fish will be a lot happier. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and check back in with you once it's finished. So I left the shells and added some more rock work. It took them a few minutes, but they do seem to like this setup a lot better. So now that we've finished with the shell dwellers, let's go ahead and start with this 29-gallon tank that's in the bottom middle. This tank's going to be a little bit different, having a gravel substrate, and obviously you can see quite a bit of mulch, which I really don't mind. But we are going to plant the crypts that we unboxed from the aquarium co-op last week, plus some of the reef rock that's never in short supply here in the fish barn. So what I'm going to do with these is go ahead and take them out of the pot, But I'm actually going to leave the rock wool. Just provides a nice base to plant it in. And now this substrate's pretty deep in here, so I shouldn't have any problem burying these into the substrate. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with 3 more of these plants, and I'm going to put the other 4 in another 29 gallon that has a very similar setup. So obviously I've kicked up quite a bit of mulch in here, but that's okay for now. And we'll go ahead and put it in the rocks. And then before I put any of the fish in here, I'm going to let the dust settle. And we'll go ahead and we'll show it to you once the dust is settled. Maybe I'll dig up a couple more plants to put in here as well. But for now, we'll go ahead and let it sit. So here's the finished product. All the mulch settled, and the tank does look a lot better. As you saw when I set this up, I really did kick up quite a bit of mulch. So I decided to clean up the mulch a little bit with an electric gravel vac and a hang-on back filter. Definitely looks a lot better. Fish-wise in this tank, I have the Chapalicthys Encaustus, which is a pretty cool looking Goodeiid species. I've had these fish for quite a while, having purchased them in 2018 and 2019. But unfortunately, the numbers have dwindled quite a bit. Earlier in their life, I did get some fry out of these guys, but I really do need to get some new blood in this tank to get this colony going. So during the ALA this year, I'll definitely be looking to find some more of these Chapalicthys Encaustus. I am really looking forward to having the crypts grow out as well, with the plan being to emulate another 20-gallon tank that we have here in the fish barn. So I want to briefly touch on this other 29-gallon tank that I've aquascaped in the same way. I planned the crypts in the exact same way and just added some different pieces of reef rock. I did add the Xenotaenia Resolonae, or leopard Goodeiid species, to this tank. During the building of the first 29-gallon rack, these fish were relocated to a 20-gallon long, which really didn't suit them. I really do think these fish are happier in their 29-gallon home. This has been a pretty prolific colony for me in terms of breeding, so I hope that continues now that they've been moved back to a 29-gallon tank. Alright, so I do want to show you this other 29-gallon tank that I did aquascape similar to the other 2 tanks that we put in the crypt one that I read. This is a different species of crypt that I got a long time ago from Lucas Bretz, but unfortunately, I don't remember the name. I did decide to put back in here my Illoyodon Whiteii, which are some of the rarest fish in my fish room. This is a species that I've not had luck with spawning, but hopefully will spawn now in their new tank. So the last tank I'm going to show you here is going to remain empty for the time being. I really don't know yet what I want to put in here, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave it empty until I decide what I want to do with it. But I would imagine that there's going to be another live bearer species that I'm going to be adding to this tank. And this tank will probably be planted with some crypts or some Vallisneria, depending what I have available and what I feel like putting in here. So I hope you enjoyed setting up these tanks with me. I'm really happy with how they turned out. If you missed the first video on the stand in these tanks, I'll go ahead and put it here at the end. So that being said, stay safe, stay fishy, and I'll see you on the next video.